I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that busy means good. If there is a problem that arises or a hole in the ship, you don't patch it because you're focused on doing all these other things. For the longest time, I felt trapped. I don't want to be stuck here anymore. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want this to feel like this is my only way forward. There needs to be something else. And I was not in a great place, and I had no business starting a business because I knew that I couldn't take care of it because I wasn't taking care of myself. And that was daunting. You want to cower and hide away after an experience like that. You absolutely feel like a failure.
You grew up in a space where it was really easy to stay in the bubble. When did you step out of the bubble?
I can't recall a specific point because I remember just so many nights of being like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I've always been gifted at, and I know what's been on my heart to create something more.
The stupid gap is the space between who you are and who you need to become in order to build a life that you don't want to escape. My guest today is Tucker Smylie. Tucker entered the stupid gap when he took a leap of faith, leaving behind life as a minister to enter the arena of entrepreneurship. Tucker continues to be in the stupid gap as he has committed himself to a life of personal growth. If you resonate with Tucker or you find this conversation to be valuable at all, please consider subscribing. It would mean the world to me. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Tucker, welcome to the Stupid Gap, man.
Come on. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome, man. So from a young age, you committed yourself to a life of service. Where does your passion to serve others come from?
Man, that's a really good question, man. A lot of it comes from wanting to share stories. From the time I was 5 years old, I always had a camera in my hand, right? And I loved learning about, other people's stories and wanted to also communicate those things and also share my own stories. And so through that, over the years, has always turned into just, loving people's uniqueness and the things that they, are passionate about, are gifted in, and wanting to either share those stories through other mediums like videography and photography, or in just simple conversations. And through that, I just have found an immense amount of joy through all the different mediums that I am passionate about and gifted at to serve people. Because I have found in my life that there's no greater joy than to be able to serve others and to have community and share, just life together. So yeah.
That's awesome, dude. When did that first show up for you?
Man, I think it showed up for me when I was an early teenager. I was a very shy and, very much not a super outgoing, talkative person in school and around others unless I felt super comfortable and confident in an environment. And so, I was also an only child. And so there are a lot of things that stemmed into just I felt very isolated and outcasted. And when I was 13, I just, started to meet, but then become mentorship in my life and guidance from people who were, in high school at that point. So I was in middle school, they were in high school, and young adults that started to care for me and pour into me and make me feel more seen as a person and cared for. And so a lot of people showed up in my life at that point and were very healthy examples of, when you're 13, 14, 15, you feel very I don't know who I am. And so you feel very lost and alone. And I just had really strong examples to show that I wasn't alone, but also gave me hope of, of who I wanted to become. And were very good examples and lights of that. And so having that at such a early, very developmental phase of my life made me want to do the same for others. That's what the biggest strive is. I want what they have and I want to give back to others in that. Um, and then, it kind of stemmed into, a kind of a rabbit hole of, the video photo stuff I was trying to do at that point. And so I found myself like creating videos of like serving people, and like the give back videos were very popular at that time. And like, whether it was feeding the homeless or doing, very, very big gestures of kindness in serving others. And I just fell in this like world of like, man, like I just love something about this, because it's for some reason it's bringing so much joy to my life. And in turn, what I didn't realize at that point was kind of forming me into, into more of the person that I am today. And that, serving others was benefiting to other people, but it was also starting to benefit within myself, and in ways that I didn't necessarily think would have happened then. But yeah.
That's cool. So those role models that you found early in life, how did you come to find them?
So I found them through church.
Okay.
So, they were, just really awesome people that were kind, were very extroverted, could make friends with anybody in a room. And so I met them there, and I didn't necessarily grow up in a faith-based home, right? And so it was very much a new environment for me, and was one that had a lot of like, oh, I don't really know what this means, because I was so used to like this idea that this could be a place where I could be judged, or not very much like I'm not as knowledgeable, right? So everyone grew up in the town that I'm from, like grew up in like the Vacation Bible School, and they were very, versed in all the stories. And I was like, I knew like the basis, but I didn't know a lot. And so I kind of went into there like, I don't know if I'm going to be necessarily accepted, right? And, all my friends that that had invited me to go, like I just, didn't know what to really expect from it, but I was welcomed with open arms, and, kind of found a really good support system through that. And, it then in turn turned into a kind of like a kind of a funnel for my gifts that I didn't really know how to use them and where to put them. And, my time in my teenage life, like kind of showing me that like, man, so much of these gifts that I have are meant to serve others. And I found that a lot through being at church and growing up in there as a teenager. So.
At what point did you start to like experiment with these gifts? And so you mentioned like the give back videos and stuff like that. Yeah, like how old were you when you started to kind of experiment and start to get out into the world and explore your gifts?
It was around 13 to 14. So this was, I'm still in middle school at that point, and so that's 7th grade, 8th grade. At that time too, in the video world and YouTube world, like travel videos were such a huge thing too. And so like I was just pulling all this like inspiration from give back videos that I was watching and travel videos, and it just made me want to explore. And I grew up in a town that you can very much get caught up in a bubble, and you can almost never leave. And it opened my eyes to look outside of that bubble because of the people that I was meeting, and whether it was in give back videos or just a desire to travel, or just in general experience more of life. And it was such a very cool thing, especially to be 13, 14 years old and to have conversation with people who I probably wouldn't have otherwise. And so it just, again, was a constant affirmation of like, man, I love getting to meet with people and have conversation with people, especially that maybe can't talk the same interests that I have of like, photography and videography. Like that's what I loved, or, I love to share different perspectives and passions. So, and a lot of that started then.
Would you say that like definitely filled the void for you when you were, you mentioned being an only child and you're very, introverted and things. And so was this outlet of media effectively? Was this your way to sort of, reach out to other people and start having those conversations?
Absolutely. It was giving so much of my young life purpose. And it was also giving me like a sense of identity. And, I didn't feel like an outcast in this medium of, creating content or serving others. Like, especially as I got older and got in high school and became more involved in like midweek programs through my church of like caring for middle schoolers. So how I was cared for, again, I got to be, a little, older and along the way of in comparison to a middle schooler, and got to, share things that I've learned and get to care for them and help them with things that they were going through and struggling with. And, all that gave my life more meaning. Because I was always so scared of, where's my place, and I looked at sports and all these things that, man, maybe I'll find it there, and I didn't. And that was a really hard thing to be at in high school. But, through focusing on my time with video and sharing stories, and then also being part of, mentorship to others through church like that, it all gave my life a very strong affirmation into the things that I enjoyed and the things that I wanted to be. And it gave me like a vision of like, this is what I want to be, when I'm, in my 20s, a young adult, or for the rest of my life. So
I think that's pretty cool. I think that it's pretty rare, I think, for people to find that sort of passion or in purpose in their lives at that young of an age. And so I guess like putting yourself back in that position, in your early 20s or even, before then in your teens, I suppose what advice would you give to someone that was trying to find their passion, their purpose in that stage of their life, and maybe they're feeling a little bit lost?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that you're not alone in doing it. Like there are people who want to be there for you and want to support you and champion you on, in that, because so much of the lie that I had to myself was that, I am alone, and that, these things that I might not be supported in these things, or, with at that point in time, creating content or YouTube, like social media was not like a form of making money necessarily as it is now. And so, there's that, and even till today, there's that fear of like being seen as cringy or people making fun of you. And man, I think the big thing is just like, when you're especially struggling with your purpose and discovering that, I think the big reminder is, you don't have to have it all figured out then, because I thought I had to, even with like having such deep passions for things, I still wanted to think I had to have it figured out and think that I needed to be much further than I was. And I think it's just okay to like be present where you're at now, and just surround yourself with a very like healthy atmosphere, and that's the people that you are spending your time with, and find like-minded people that, want to grow or have these certain passions that you have, and hone in on that, because I feel like, again, community and service of others, I feel like when you are so committed to that, you will find your purpose, or more so your purpose will find you. And that you don't always necessarily have to be searching for it, because it's already inside you. It's about it revealing itself to you. And so I think that just takes like just being present and just focusing on where you're at, and how can I grow? How can I enjoy my life more? And years of the way you'll find it, especially for a teenager, especially in a world now where I feel like social media says that you have to have it all figured out and you have to be much older than you are. And I could not imagine being where I was at, but 10 plus years to the future with the certain struggles that social media essentially enables teenagers or anyone who's struggling in any sense to start comparing themselves or feel like any less. And so, yeah, I think my big thing is just hone in more on where you're at, surround yourself with just amazing, like-minded people, and just know hey, life's going to figure itself out and you don't have to necessarily force it. So.
Heck yeah, man. So you mentioned you grew up in a space where it was really easy to stay in the bubble. When did you step out of the bubble?
I didn't step out of the bubble until, truthfully, when I had graduated and moved for college. Though it wasn't any crazy move. It was an hour and a half away. But I had spent most of my teenage life too, even when I was happy, even when I had found things that I enjoyed doing and being surrounded by amazing people, I still I wanted more. I wanted to go out and experience the world, and but I still felt a little bounded by the fact that I was trying to pursue college, but also wrestled with what does that look like for someone who's known what they wanted to do and their path is not necessarily traditional in the sense of getting a 4-year degree and then going and getting a career and then staying in said career for 40 years. That just didn't sound exciting for me. And so, my first year of college is kind of figuring that out, of wanting to experience the world and get out more and kind of start creating a life for myself that wasn't necessarily paying for it necessarily. But I think what helped a lot is my family, my parents. They also left the town that I'm from, and it essentially was felt like a full cutting of ties of where I grew up my entire life. For 19 years I grew up in only one town. And that was also a scary thing too, because that meant meeting new people. Though I was only 90 minutes away, I was also in a town that I knew one person maybe, and that was really scary. And COVID happened during that time too. And so, when the world shut down, I'm in this town where I haven't really developed any sort of community or any source of security. And, that was really hard, to find that, when, essentially everybody I could meet left. And, that, was a really challenging thing. And, kind of more towards your question of when I kind of got out of that bubble, it's weird. It's I got out of the bubble and I was super lost and alone, what I had known as my source of security, being in this little small town, I completely removed myself from it. And now I'm lost, and completely alone from what it felt like. And a lot of that was because of the circumstances that I had found myself in.
Yeah.
So.
How did you go about handling that adversity that you had put yourself into?
And in full honesty, not very well.
Hmm.
You know, it made me very unhealthy. Like, I essentially just like locked myself internally to putting myself out there, to getting to know people, because I felt like very like much like, okay, well, you know, it's not working here, you know. And I, you know, left the town that I was in for school and moved back up to the Dallas area, and kind of got right back into a flow and comfortability. And you know, that immediately started eating at me of like, okay, well, I'm back to square one. Like, I wanted to break free of this town that I've spent my entire life in, but now I'm right back to square one. And a lot of that too was, you know, utilizing my skills in photo video to help out friends in my church during the pandemic. And that was awesome and that was fun. But, you know, deep down, like, I knew that I was not necessarily like challenging myself or growing myself, because I'm back where I felt most comfortable. And it wasn't until, you know, almost 2 years that I finally was like, I don't want to be stuck here anymore. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want this to feel like this is my only way forward. Like, there needs to be something else. And this was 2021. And so I kind of finally was like, all right, I need to find some form of something, you know, because at this time too, I had tried to like launch little businesses, and they were great learning experiences, but it was not coming to fruition to show like signs of life for years and years and years down the road. And so again, I felt trapped. This is the only place I can really, you know, make money and provide for myself and have friends and community. But at the same time, because I had left the bubble and have grown, it's like it wasn't the same place either. And so there's that recognition, you know, almost a year, 2 years later. And it wasn't until I was kind of at my worst, because at this time too, like, a relationship that I had fell through, and so that was just kind of having to navigate that, as it was like my first real relationship and long-term one. And so it's just like I kind of felt stripped of the things that I had placed my identity at that point in time, and just felt like nothing's working out. And nothing is making me feel like this is where I'm supposed to be at. Like, I felt almost like I am faking it until I make it, or that I'm on a temporary timeline. And that's really hard to be like, I don't know where my future is, because it's not proving to exist here. Yeah.
What was that moment of pull towards something greater? What was that moment like for you? Like, how did that voice appear in your life?
I can't recall a specific point, because I remember just so many nights of being like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know what I've always been gifted at, and I know what's been on my heart to create something more. And to, you know, I've always joked that I am a multi-passionate person, and that's a pro to my life, but that's also a very con of my life, because it means that I can kind of be all over and not have something that's true and strong. And, you know, I'm not the greatest multitasker. And so with that means that I can start all these little things, or have these kind of ideas, or have these goals, but I'm not spending real hard time honing in on one to allow it to launch me forward or to grow. And, I, towards the back end of 2021, had just an opportunity fell in my lap to kind of use more of my talents and giftings in media, um, in a completely different church, one that was closer into Dallas. And I knew nobody, except for one friend who, essentially threw my name into a hat and said, like, hey, you should look into this guy. And it was a crazy situation, because at this time too, I was also getting rejected from other opportunities, which then, further affirmed my fear of, like, man, that I'm trapped. But it was really after months and months of waiting to hear back from this potential connected opportunity, that when it happened, when I was just the simple, like, hey, come in for a conversation, like, I think that kind of for me ignited like a whoa, okay, because I had just received all these rejections, and where I thought would have been like the most ideal opportunity fizzled out. And through this process, I was like, whoa, okay, I'm being valued from these other people, and they want me. They see my skill sets and my passions as valuable. And I didn't question a moment, because one opportunity came in front of me. And so I think that was like the moment of like, okay, and I took that jump. And for the short time that I was there, again, kind of similar to when I was a teenager, like, I met so many people and lifelong friendships. And when I kind of came to a point in my life again where I felt very lost and alone, like, it was an opportunity to feel like a part of something again. Because so much of what I had gone through in my early 20s, like, stripped any sort of security and community that I had. I just got to learn more about my gift and how I can use it, and dreams that I had, to be sustainable, but also long term, and meaningful. And through that experience too, I realized that it wasn't in a single avenue necessarily, that I could branch out in different industries or different opportunities, but still have the same, like, clear mission within myself, because that's where I felt trapped too, and in various time points in my 20s of feeling like this is my only way forward, and if I don't pursue it, or if it's not working, then I'm kind of just at the end of the road and hitting a brick wall. And so that was kind of that moment of starting to kind of have that breakthrough. But I was still kind of finding myself in a very weird gap, because something in my life was not being truly, like, fulfilled. So.
I mean, it sounds like you are, and have been for quite a while, like, just very in touch with your intuition, very introspective. What are some tools that you've used to practice that in your life and to find your own voice so that you can lead yourself into these positions?
Man, I think a lot of that started just from being on my own, like, being an only child, living a lot of my life kind of where I had to be self-sufficient, and independent. And, I think where a lot of that stems from is learning to step back a lot of times. Because I'm a person who can get very much, like, filled with overthinking or anxiety about a situation. And what I've just found through extreme failure and extreme practice. It's just, man, like being able to pull myself out of a situation where I could be quick to react or quick to have any sort of not healthy reaction or action to something, and just go, okay, like looking at it from a greater lens of, I don't have to have this all figured out. And I need to search myself because there's something that's going on. And the only way I'm going to figure that out is to spend time with that. From my faith, that looks like prayer. From my just in general being wired, is that means time alone in a healthy sense. Because while being alone lonely has been a negative in my life, there have been very strong moments of like my sense of independence has also allowed me to really take time to search myself and figure out like that I'm capable to get through a situation, or that I'm capable to figure out somewhere where I feel stuck. And again, that also looks like reaching out to others and getting their input on how something is viewed, or, do they support necessarily this place that I'm at and thing that I'm thinking of, or decision that I'm wanting to make. And so again, I think a lot of it just stems from how I was raised and the situation that I was in, to have that ability to figure it out, kind of on my own. So.
Was that practice of sitting with yourself and taking the step back, like you said, was that ever uncomfortable for you?
Absolutely, especially, and if it's in a place of where I'm happy, or like everything's looking to appear to go right, and a lot of this stems from how I got to the point of where I'm at now of, hard decisions that I might not like, but I know is the best thing, or that is a very great risk, or is one that's going to be met with not agreeance from people or parents. And also, I think a lot of that was when you kind of step back and you're kind of also making yourself vulnerable to a degree, because you can just kind of allow anything to influence you. And again, a lot of that has taken time and discernment. And I think that's the kind of the power also of stepping away and putting myself in a place like, whether it's taking a small trip, being outside, like trying to bring myself to a place of stillness and quietness to fully filter out all the noise and to fight off any sort of lie or deceiving that is going on, and trying to navigate what's next or how to approach something. And it's been, it's still a thing I'm trying to figure out today of, like trusting my gut and trusting that I know the things that I dream and am passionate about. And I just got to make sure that what I'm doing today, tomorrow, is in alignment to that. Because if I don't, I'm going to continue to find myself in like a weird space of, I could continue living the way I'm in this comfort or in this place, but it also is not necessarily fulfilling. And not building something that I would strive to have in the future.
That's tough to do sometimes, though, you know?
It is. There's no easy way about it. And I think that's the important part too is,
Yeah, man. I mean, taking that step back, especially if you're a person that gets, tunnel vision of sorts, or if you're, particularly as you hone in on your passions, it's been my experience that it's really easy to like, oof, yeah, it feels good. It's fun. It's challenging me in a good way. And then next thing you know, you're, weeks or months down the line and you're like, wait a minute, is this actually mission driven? Is this helping me? And so I guess my question, and I'm curious for you, is like, how do you hold yourself accountable to sticking towards being a person, as you mentioned earlier, that jack of all trades, we'll call it. How do you hold yourself accountable to staying to your specific goals that you outlined for yourself when you find these other passionate areas in your life? Does that make sense?
absolutely. The first thing that kind of popped into mind is knowing that I have the jack of all trades, but that doesn't mean that every skill, every passion is on the same level of each other. And a lot of that understanding as well as like my very ease to procrastinate or push something down the road, it turned into I can't hold all these things at once, and that I need to very much be intentional and focus on one particular thing. And then when you grow that, when you work through that, when you get it to a place of this is good, then you jump to the next one. Because I've also found, and just in general tasks, even like you can put something off, the hard thing, the thing that looks scary and daunting, and then you do it and you go, wow, that was significantly easier than I made it out to be. And so that's something even the last couple of years that I've realized about myself and how to hold myself accountable is like, hey, these things in front of you, they're all great. They're all awesome. But you got to start at step one, or you got to focus on this one thing first. And then you can get to the next. But you have to treat it as like a process, because you can't do it all at once. You found that out very quickly. No one can. And if they say they can, they're probably lying. But you just really need to focus on this one thing, an area that you can work on, and stay true to that. And don't rush it. Because at even 26 years old, I don't need to pretend like I'm filled with knowledge and I'm 50 years old. Like, I have so much areas that I can grow and things that I can focus on, things that I can build and work on. But, that's down the road. Let's just focus on this one thing right here that is very clear and evident, and really like latch onto that thing, because there's an obvious within my life that this is somewhere where I can find that greater purpose. And so a lot of it, again, with stepping back, it's take that step forward, but take that small step. Don't try to overstep it. Don't try to take a shortcut, and don't try to take too big of a step,
What is your method for triaging those things? Say you are looking at, multiple things that will benefit you and potentially in equal or greater value, across the board, they will all. How do you find that one thing? What is your method for identifying the next step that you need to take?
Absolutely. That's a good question. I think from my experience, the way I've found that is a lot of example, I've been in photo and video, and the company that I now run today came out of nowhere. Like, I had always had the idea a coffee shop would be cool. I love coffee. I love photo video, trying to navigate this connection between the two. And the coffee cart and catering business fell in my lap, and there was an opportunity that kind of opened. and in kind of entertaining it a little bit, just kind of like, oh, this is fun, this is cool. I think what kind of helped me figure out the step that I should take or to hone in on something is how it makes me feel or how it makes other people feel. And I think it's what has the greatest impact right here, right now. Like what's the big thing I can do that has the greatest impact now? And, because even with trying to figure out like my ease to, kind of be all over the place, to procrastinate, a lot of it has been like a practice of even in the morning. Like I'm going to work on the most important thing and do the hardest and most impactful things in the morning. Get it out of the way, but also it can make the rest of my day more productive, or at least I can feel like, okay, well, I can do nothing the rest of the day, but at least I achieved this one thing early in my day. And, you'll see the impact of that and the importance of it. And that's kind of what started to kind of surprise me is it wasn't necessarily that I had to do or figure out something. It was just kind of on its own. It kind of just showed itself and revealed itself to me that, okay, this is the thing I should be focusing on because of what it's doing in areas of my life and also how it's impacting others, because so much of my work and my career is tied to like how it can be a solution or provide something for others. And so when I saw that exceed the impact of what I was doing as a photographer or videographer, that kind of like made me go, oh, okay, let's investigate this a little further. Let's look at this and see what this thing's all about, because I was so unaware of it at the time and not, in comparison to my background in media, not as experienced or educated in it. So
that's sort of the macro of like how to identify the opportunities that you have in your life. But on like the more micro level of you have years of entrepreneurship under your belt, and so it's like, how do you identify? You spoke about doing the most important thing first thing in the morning. How do you practice that in your entrepreneurial journey of like identifying what that thing needs to be?
Yeah. At least on the micro, at least if I'm understanding your question well enough, I think to kind of figure out what that thing is, I kind of got to look at what's the thing that needs the most work on. Like what's the I use an analogy a lot of like holes in a ship, right? So what's the one spot that's leaking, or where's this one thing that could utilize a patch or utilize refinement? And so I kind of sit back and I go, okay, like what's kind of holding me back, but can put me forward if I spend time with it, and won't be a hindrance necessarily, not lead in more water. And so that's even something, again, that I'm trying to figure out today because, I can spend all my time on this thing at the start, and it takes a lot of time. But then I go, okay, but was that necessarily the best thing? And I think that's kind of the weird trying to navigate what that looks like. Yeah, like if you don't mind, like going in a little deeper on the micro, like what is your thoughts in that question? Like what would you even say? Like how would that look like for you? So I can better understand that.
Yeah. So when I like specifically was talking about this, it's like when you're running a business, you're wearing so many different hats, right? And it's like you got to do everything. And for me, I keep looking around for someone else to be doing stuff, and I keep looking at myself. It's me. Yeah. It's me. Oh, who's going to do this? Me. And so in that, particularly as I very much identify with what you said about being a jack of all trades and kind of having like a little bit of a scatterbrain, and it's like, oh, I can do these things and feel equally passionate about doing multiple things. That if I get locked into something like, say, a marketing deal. It's like, well, maybe marketing isn't the best thing, the most important thing that I should be doing this morning. Maybe I need to edit this video rather, instead of, working on something else. And so it's like really trying to, like you mentioned earlier, take a step back and get that big picture view of your business as a whole and say, okay, what is going to move the needle the most today? And for me, like I read a book called Essentialism. And in it, the concept is the acronym WIN, W-I-N, what is important now? And it's basically that 80-20 rule of what is 20% of your business that will move the needle, or does 80% of the work, or whatever it is, and it's like trying to identify that. And so that is Michael. Does that kind of...
Absolutely. I mean, from how I'm hearing it, and it makes more sense to me because in real time, I'm sitting here with the big hats and all the different hats. Like I'm like, oh man, it's overwhelming, especially like in a small business and as an owner operator, like, kind of with what you're saying and it's simplifying it. All right. At the core of it, there are like these pillars of like, these are the things that keep my business running. These are the things that, are super healthy and super important within my life. And again, with the stepping back, I think it's understanding, okay, this is the only way, like these are the only couple things that keep everything running and keep it growing or keep it healthy. And everything else is kind of, it's extra fat, it's like cutting the excess fat off. And, I think it's being reminded and being more self-aware with that, because I don't necessarily have the ability at the current state to be able to delegate and take things off my plate necessarily. And so, I think it's looking at it of like, I need to chew on the really important things and the things that are super healthy, and everything else, there's a time and place for it. But right now I can really only hone in one. And so I think that is something that I'm still looking at as like really deep micro with a magnifying glass. Like I'm still trying to figure that out in all honesty and humility of, I think as things have grown, I've had to figure out, okay, well, this means that I have to grow in ways because, the success of my business or my life is dependent on me. And these things cannot grow without the other. As a small business owner, like, the health and well-being of my business is very dependent on the health and well-being of myself. And, again, with trying to learn how to be better with the discipline of the important big stuff that have the greatest impact, it's really, for me, like allotting that time and in the morning or on specific days to be super present with that. And if I have a morning where I don't do it, or I have days that I don't do it, then I know that that's just going to snowball in an effort of procrastination or just kicking it down the road, which is only going to let it bleed longer and greater. And then it's like early what I said of like realizing, wow, that wasn't really that hard, but something in my mind was telling me like, oh, this is a challenge, you need to brace yourself. But really it's, trying to recognize within myself of, come on, you can do it, and I think it kind of goes into understanding that I have the capabilities to do it. I just need to do it, man. Like I can't let other things hold me back from taking a step forward. And that goes with, my business, my personal life, just in general, like just take a step forward. Don't overanalyze it. Don't overthink it, because I can get so caught as a creative as well to just, over plan and overthink this through. And something I had read was like, in doing that, you're releasing the same level of like dopamine, like as if you completed said task. And that's where I fall in that trap of like, man, you can plan and feel good about it and feel the same level of like, I did it, and as if I did it, but I didn't. And I think knowing that now has like braced me more to don't over plan, because that means like my execution level is going to be very low.
Hmm.
And so I need to just attack the day and take steps, and later we can plan. That doesn't mean be super irrational or indecisive. It just means to start your day with action and then refine it, plan later. And, take, because I've already done all the procrastinating and all the planning, just, trust my instinct, just take the step. Because I think a lot of it can be that fear of doing the hard thing, taking a step, doing something that's uncomfortable. And so again, I hope that further kind of answers your question of being more aware of those things within my life and how I operate to combat and fight against, the things that I deeply struggle with too, that keep me from completing and fulfilling things within my business and my life.
Yeah, for sure. And you're speaking my language, man, because I very deeply have gotten down the path of the over planning and getting that dopamine fix of, ooh, yeah, I planned it all the way to the end. It's here we go. And then you never start, or, you don't execute. And it's something that I'm learning now. It's very apparent in my entrepreneurial journey. Like I'm only a year and a half into my entrepreneurial journey, so it's like pretty new. And so like I'm learning all these lessons in real time, right? But that one is the one that I'm like coming to the realization is very apparent in my life. Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that, because it's like I feel some solidarity here, man. So in that, I suppose, let me ask you this. Have you ever dealt with perfectionism?
Absolutely.
Okay, so how did you overcome your perfectionism in the same context as not over planning, but planning enough to where you kind of know what that next step is, but not over planning and not leaning into that perfectionism?
Absolutely. I've, struggled with this in every business, and, my individual person of whether it be relationally or anything, I'm just like wanting or feeling like I had to be perfect. And that's kept me from taking any sort of, step forward, because if it's not perfect, then it can't be shown to the world or to others. And I think it's been something that I love to say is like, there's beauty in imperfection. Like no one just started at the top. No one shows you the view from the top of a mountain off the start. Like there is the climb, there is the not so pretty aspects of it. And I think it's understanding that like perfect's not necessarily the goal, right? Perfection, it's part of the process, but it's not like the necessarily end goal. And I love to change it into like refining, like constantly getting better. Like I don't have to be the best. This doesn't have to be perfect necessarily, but it's like just getting to start, and I can refine it as I go, because that's the only way I'm going to necessarily learn or see something get the closest it can to perfect is by doing, by learning and failing. And one of my favorite analogies to use is like the harvest, like farming. Is you plant, you grow, you prune, and then you harvest, and you do it all over again. And it's like a constant, like the healthiest harvest is the one that grows and tears down and grows even more, and is a constant process of doing that. And understanding like that is okay within my business, within my life, of like just starting, just plant the seed, grow, tend to it, learn, evolve it. If you need to, tear down a lot of things that aren't beneficial or helpful, and then rebuild, and keep doing that over. And I think that's the exciting thing about running a business, growing as a person, is at any point in time, I can go, scratch that, let's start again. Or I've learned my lesson. This wasn't that great. I know how to make it better because I've experienced it. And so I think a lot of like the perfectionism and how to counter that is realizing you can always get better, and that's okay. Like that is enough to be imperfect and to be in the process of trying to grow, to try to like strive for that. But again, that's not the goal. The goal is just to daily refine, to grow, to get better, prune some things that you need to prune, do it all over again,
Yeah.
Because if it was all perfect all the time, it would get real boring.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing that I'm trying to like bring myself to, not bring that I do recognize is like, I had not a perfect life, but like I had a perfect life on paper, right? And I walked away from it because it was boring as hell. And like I could see the next 30 years of my life, ahead of me. And it was like, no, I stepped into this for a reason. But it's also recognizing that it's like, again, this solidarity of like everybody deals with this perfectionism. Everybody deals with this sort of struggle with identifying, what's important now and all this stuff. And I'm learning all this in real time. And that's why I started this podcast, is because like I like talking to people that are also on this, similar journey, and maybe further ahead than me or further behind than me or whatever it is. And so, yeah, I appreciate all the advice.
Absolutely.
My question is, so earlier you talked about like the growth of your business greatly depends and is, equal to the growth of yourself. And so what mechanisms do you have in place to grow alongside your business in the personal side of things? Does that make sense?
I think the big thing is that I found with my business is only as successful as, or has the ability to only grow if I grow, or with however healthy I am. And again, I think that turns into like before I can, work on something with the business or even consider, like launching something or taking on this big responsibility with my business, I have to also make sure like where am I at health wise, right? And I think that turns into like I'm like priority one, because if it's business over myself, then man, I'm gonna deteriorate myself. It's gonna lead to burnout. And so it starts with me, like it has to, with being a small business owner. Like I have to take care of myself, so I have to do things that are separate from the company that will challenge me to bring my peace, my source of joy, all the various things, and show up as my healthiest self to my business. Because it's a lot like a relationship or a marriage, right? With being in a business. And, a lot of the conflicts and the things that happen within a relationship, you can kind of look at yourself and go, I have very much my play in this problem, right? So whatever that looks like in regards to a business, it's like at the end of the day, I have my part and why we're here, and I have my part to get us through this and to heal, to grow. So I think it's the recognizing that I have to take care of myself. I have to do the things that are the healthiest things for my emotional, mental, spiritual, physical health, so that I can show up to my business and have more, motivation to do the same within my business, right? And I can only learn that for my business through myself. Like I'm in the hospitality world with the coffee catering company. So that means a lot of serving people. That means a lot of conversations. That means bringing joy to people. That means being happy, and you can't fake it, because if I'm not happy in my life and there's not a lot of joy and I'm at an event, I'm not going to treat people necessarily the way that I like with all utmost of joy, because I don't have it within myself. And that's going to translate very easily to people that, man, I didn't really feel cared for, is what like a client would say, or a guest. And that's probably because I'm not caring for myself. Not that that was my, goal was to make them feel not great it's that I'm not making myself feel great, that there's something here, and now it's affecting other people. And so specifically with being in the hospitality business, like knowing that like my job is to care for people, but I can't care for people if I don't care for myself first, right? Like, because with doing the things that are good and healthy for myself, the act of community to loving others, that should be an overflow, but it starts with me. Like my entire business is dependent on it. So that means that me, any of team members that I have, we got to be right here so that we can most effectively love and serve other people. So
Beautiful. How do you find that balance in your life of like, I suppose the overarching, theme of an entrepreneur of wanting to be ambitious, right? Mm-hmm. But also find that balance to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, as far as experience, I've learned that because I've experienced what happens if you don't take care of yourself. I've seen how it hurts your business. I've seen how it can affect other people. And again, this comes from the trials and failures of other businesses, that when I wasn't in a great spot, when I wasn't taking care of myself, like earlier in my story in early college, like I was not in a great place, and I had no business starting a business because I knew that I couldn't take care of it because I wasn't taking care of myself. And I saw exactly what that did, that had damaged partnerships and relationships, and it didn't make other people truly feel like cared for. And that was daunting, you want to cower and hide away after an experience like that, especially when a business just collapses and fails. You absolutely feel like a failure, right? And that's why I think I was so delayed in starting this business, or at least kind of was very hesitant towards it, was because I didn't want to be in a place like that again. And I think a lot of that is driven from that past experience, to be like, okay, well, if I'm going to truly do this business, man, like I can't be in a position like that again, and use that as motivation to continue working on myself and be the best version of myself, to be able to carry the weight and the growth of my business. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially when, my livelihood's dependent on it. My livelihood is dependent on the success of my business. It's the way that I eat and survive in this world. And that means like having to combat the grind. Everybody really, really pushes, you got to grind and work hard, which is absolutely true. And while there are absolutely essential times and seasons where you're working 80 hours a week or more, and you are living and breathing your business, there's a time and a place for that. But living in that forever and not being aware that you need to create opportunity or delegate or bring in more people or support or anything that you need to do to get out of that, if you just sit inside of that, man, you're going to deteriorate your identity and your overall well-being as a person. Because creatives are, one of the, I would say the number one best skilled at this is burnout. They experience it the most. It's very easy as a creative too, because it's such a mentally taxing environment to always expend yourself with the highest of creative skill, and you can't be any less than that standard. Like, you have to continually be the same level and create in the same sense. And then, take the business aspect of it, and then there's all the things that, wearing all the hats, and that burnout is inevitable when you are pedal to the metal. You know, when you're driving 120 miles per hour, your foot's all the way on the gas, you're going to run out of gas and you're going to be on the side of the road. And I think for me, it's realizing that, okay, there's a time and a place to ramp up the speed, but you need to let off the gas a little bit, because you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, because it's going to affect the well-being of one of these things. So I hope that answers your question a bit.
Yeah, it does. And what comes to mind for me is like, you know, and what I'm curious about for you is, you know, what is your inner voice like in those moments of when you're recognizing that maybe I'm pushing a little too hard, maybe I need to let off the gas, or maybe I, you know, need to find some balance in my life? Like, what is the inner dialogue like for you?
Yeah. Again, I think a lot of it's a wrestling. It's a wrestling voice. It's the business owner in me, and then it's just the straight up human that in me that's like, sure, I would love to take a vacation. And then there's the business side of me that's like, no, you can't take a vacation. There's so much to do, so much more. And I think I think the healthy version of that is, man, there's so much work to do, right? But you can't get it all done in one day. You can only do what you can today and know that there's tomorrow. And that voice is constantly reminding me of like, okay, don't procrastinate it. That's the hard part. But know that, you know, it's okay that if you're not able to give 100%, that, man, even any sort of percent is enough, essentially, right? Like, you don't always have to give 100%. It's okay to be in a place of, I'm going to give what I'm able, and just know that that's enough for today. We're going to come back tomorrow. We're going to come back stronger. Or we're going to give myself the ability to rest, because I think that's the one thing that most people aren't good at, creatives, entrepreneurs, anybody. Because I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that busy means good. Like, talking to anybody who runs a business, when they're like, yeah, I'm super busy, it's awesome. You know, with saying that means that there's not a lot of time. When there's not a lot of time, that means that if there is a problem that arises or a hole in the ship, you don't patch it because you're focused on doing all these other things. And that means there's now a hole in the ship that you're on the top level, you don't see it, you don't have time to go look for it, you don't even have time to like recognize that it's happening. And so I think a lot of it is being okay to give myself rest, that, you know, I'm not going to make $1 million tomorrow or today, you know, that I just got to take one small step forward and go, that was an essential or needed step, and take the rest of the time to refuel within myself, right? Because I'm one of the, like, a silly little analogy again is like, you know, going on a road trip, right? And most people don't like I have to pull over and get gas in a very inconvenient spot. I just want to keep driving. We're on the last leg of the trip, right? And then I'm guilty of this. I hate just when you're sitting at the gas station and you're pumping your gas. It's taking forever, man. Like, I just want to, you know, pump. Let's get out. Like, let's just go, right? I don't like seeing the gas prices and what that looks like, but I know it's like, in the long run, just fill up your tank now, right? Don't fill it up quarter and then go down the street, and now there's no more gas stations. And now you're like, well, I only had a quarter tank of gas. I should have filled up all the way and we could have gotten all the way through this, but now I'm at less than a quarter tank of gas. There's no gas stations around. I don't know how the heck I'm going to get to the destination. And I could just run out of gas right here on the end of the road. And now I don't know, you know, where on earth am I going to get gas? And so I think it's being okay to spend some time at that gas station, fill up the tank, see the crazy, ridiculous gas prices, and just know that it's better to do that than the alternative.
Yeah, I mean, effectively what we're talking about is grace. Absolutely. You know, and And sort of what I'm gathering from your mindset, at least the way I hear it, is like, particularly in your gas analogy, is like it's just part of the journey. It's like you can't get where you're going if you don't fill up the tank, right? You're just gonna run out of gas. And so developing grace for yourself in this entrepreneurial journey is just a cost of doing business. It's something that you have to do, and if you can't do it, then you're never gonna get to where you need to go. Is the way I heard that.
And I think that stems a lot with the perfectionism part. It's like, being imperfect, like messing up, having failures, like that's where the beauty part of imperfection comes in, is because of the level of grace you can have for yourself, and also the opportunity to grow, right? Because you don't grow when you're perfect. When something's perfect, it's unchanged. There's no reason to change it. So that, again, that gets boring, but also, again, that you miss out on so many opportunities with imperfection to have a greater sense of grace and love for yourself, and for the opportunity to want to be better,
What's coming to mind for me is like the term of progressive overload when it comes to growth. Are you familiar with that?
Remind me.
It's like, particularly in like the gym is where it's typically used. Is like progressive overload is just you start off with a smaller amount of weight, and then over time you add more and more weight. And so I use that framework in the realm of entrepreneurship of like, okay, when is it time for me to level up the weight to bring on more? When am I ready for that? And so my question is for you, how do you know when you're at a point to where it's quote unquote safe for you to bring on more responsibility and add more to your plate so that you can keep moving the needle further and further? Does that make sense?
So how to know that you can take on more weight, like you're more capable now. I think there's kind of some multiple thoughts, like kind of rambling in my head, but I, again, big analogy person, so I won't hold too strong to this analogy, as it is something I'm still working through in my head, but I think it's your level of hunger, I would say. It's like, when you have a lot, when you're full, right? When you're completely full, you don't want to eat anything else, right? But there's going to be a point when, you've managed everything, and you get a little bit more of a hunger, like, okay, I could eat, I could take on more. Again, I'm not going to hold too strong to this analogy. But I think it's when I sense that, okay, a lot of things are stabilizing within my business to where I can kind of move a little laterally without these things falling apart. And I think that comes from a very strong foundation on those aspects of my business, to where they don't necessarily need all my focus. How to navigate, how to see that. I think there's, from an entrepreneurial sense and running a business, I think the healthiest version would be when you can delegate those aspects, whatever form they may look like, or have strong systems that can hold that, right? Because not every entrepreneur can just bring on people to do XYZ task. We would love it. But I think, a business, a life even, is only as good as its systems, right? And I think so much of, especially my time, is building strong systems to where these things can flourish and kind of be on their own, and I can kind of move to something else that is needing of my time. And in knowing that, I think from a personal sense is my ability to take on more, or to do more, is also with a healthier version of myself, right? Like with the progressive overload in the gym sense. It's becoming stronger. Like you do that because you're getting stronger. But that also looks like, stripping the weights and slowly adding on those weights, re-stretching the body, seeing how far it can go, but not to the point of injury, right? And because even still, when you get to that certain point, you don't then go, next time, we're going to put all the big weights on and we're going to go for the next PR, right? You still do the progressive overload, still add a little bit more, still start low. Like for me, got to stretch. Sometimes I want to just jump to the thing, but I got to stretch. I got to make sure that I'm in a good state to add more. And so I think a lot of it comes down to discernment and discipline we know what we can take on, but you also got to be careful that you don't take on too much and have overconfidence in yourself. And, I think anytime that I'm like, okay, there's this new aspect that I can add to my business, I know that, the way that I would filter it is, okay, first I have to investigate, is there places where I can remove some fat, some things that aren't really providing value, and kind of not necessarily take on more, but remove some things, add some more to where it's not that great of a jump in what I'm taking on, but it's enough that it's more than I was in the past. But I take off kind of the things that are taking up too much of my time, and that can be delegating, or that can be just absolutely like pruning the thing and getting it out. But I think a lot of that comes down to just like, with taking on more, it's taking on good more, if that makes sense. Like taking on the really good things that aren't like just to fill your plate up, but it's things that are going to like satiate you and make you feel good still, and not just be like this overload of things that are very bad and are not super healthy that, work against you. But I think like wrapping it up to the thought of, with adding more, it's adding things that work for me, not against me. Right. And so not taking on something that's kind of going to take more of me away rather than giving more to me. So I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of a common theme that we talked about here today, which is like just having that discernment of being able to step back and say, okay, is this the right move? Is this, what's important now? Is this going to benefit me in the long run? And then practicing the discernment and the accountability to walk that fine line of ambition versus balance versus, my business is only as healthy as I am, which is hard. Yeah, so I guess I'm curious about how you approach long-term planning, both in your business as well as in your personal life. I suppose more so in your personal life, of like, okay, where are you headed? What's your long-term plan for yourself?
Absolutely. I think the thing that has helped me most is simplifying it, right? Like the core things that are unwavering, the things that will never change, right? This is always something funny that I've gone through with my parents, is like, whether it's tattoos or different things, like these things fizzle out, right? They've always been like, oh, don't do this because, you might not love it down the road. Like, or like hobbies or toys that I liked at the points in time. And they were usually for the most part right. And, I think it's challenged me to like be very, very, very sure about the things and trajectory of where I'm going, and have like the core aspects of it, so that if anything changes, like my business could end tomorrow. I don't think it will. I really hope it doesn't. But, I think whether this is just because I'm wired and like I want to provide solutions for problems and have various mediums to do that. I think it's having a strong sense of core mission purpose on where I want my life to be, and all the different things of what I'm doing now aren't necessarily dependent on that. So that if my business did go away, or I try something else, that it wouldn't mean that like my vision or mission for my life has necessarily changed. It just looks slightly different on how I'm going to necessarily achieve and get to that point. And so for me personally, like everything that I'm doing is for the goal to have a family, to be able to live a life where I'm not bounded by anything. I'm not bounded to the city that I live in. I'm not bounded to the corporate job that pays me. I'm not like bounded to only do this because it provides money for me, that I could be financially free with my time to be able to, pursue or be intentional in whatever regards I want to, whether it is with time with my family, time with myself, time to travel, like all these various things. Like the core of it is to be able to create freedom, but to create further enjoyment within my life, and for others, right? And to not necessarily feel bounded by anything, because for the longest time I felt trapped. I felt trapped in the town I grew up in. I felt trapped in jobs, and career paths and school. So everything I do now is to build opportunity, to just get to experience a lot, to get to meet with a lot of people, to support a lot of things, and again, just not be bounded by anything. Because as a creative, it's hard to be like locked to one thing. But I think more important than anything, like to be present and to not let my work or the things that I love doing take away from very, very important aspects and aspirations that I have in my life, which is family, and partnership. And so, because time is the one thing you can't get back, right? We can do all the different things, we can achieve all the things, we can build all the businesses, but if it's not giving us back our time, all we're doing is just giving our time away to other things that they're going to mismanage our time. Other people are going to mismanage our time and not care for it well. And at the end of the day, like I said, like I can put all the time in my business, but if it's not giving me back that time, then my business is going to just take up my time. And if it crashes and burns, it's going to leave me in like complete ruins of financial and time and energy. So.
Yeah, I'm curious about, because you talked about a couple of times about balancing, being a creative in the realm of entrepreneurship. And I very much identify with that as well. And I felt like I was a creative before I became an entrepreneur. And one struggle that I really had was trying to lean into the inevitable necessity for structure within entrepreneurship. Like, obviously, you gotta be diligent about things. You got to show up to work every day, right? But the creative side of me and the creative energy of me really, really thrives in a more flexible and fluid environment. And so I'm curious, has that shown up for you as a creative, and how do you handle that in entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I very much resonate with that because at the core, no matter how much we love, to be fluid, to be flexible or spontaneous, at the end of the day, like all humans need, structure, and they need consistency. And so, for me to be aware that like, man, I love being able to just kind of, I think one of the fun things, of course, that everybody says is running your own business or being a creative is like getting more like ownership of my time and to get to do whatever I want almost at will. And, if I want to meet someone for coffee, I can do that. But I know that, that can only be sustainable if I have aspects that are very consistent and structured. Because I need those good habits, because, I think that the con where that can be unhealthy, to be fluid, to have a flexible time and ownership of that is an unhealthy sense, can then lead into procrastination, because I don't need to be anywhere. I don't need anybody to rely on me. And so you can easily fall into that trap of like, I can just not do anything and be super not productive. And I think it's kind of knowing how to balance the two of you need the consistencies within your schedule per day. Like, when you and I were talking earlier, like you seem to be very, very disciplined in the mornings of your important work to breath work to spend time and filling yourself and filling that tank up. And doing so, having that consistency in that habit and ritual allows you to be able to be flexible throughout the day, or to be able to show up in various different scenes and be in a healthy version of doing that and balance it. It all starts from having that consistency and that habit first to allow that. You don't just show up to that, and no one just can just hang out and be able to have all this time and flexibility without first like stretching that muscle, essentially. And stretching that muscle is the consistent habit of these are the little things that I have to do first to be able to allow that. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think, again, what I'm curious about is like, what are those tangible systems for you? Like for me, it's meditation, it's breath work, it's journaling, it's time outside. What are those tangible systems for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's very similar. It is every morning. One of my favorite things is to get up in the morning. I have a hot lemon water with salt and honey. It's a way that I, get hydrated, can kind of have something hot to get my system running. Cause when I wake up, I'm just groggy. Right. But important thing for me is to like get outside immediately as fast as I can. Because, one thing that I love about being here in Austin now is like, there's nature, there's life outside. And I think that's a very grounding thing to get sunlight on you. That's very good. It wakes you up, gets your systems moving, but also get to see the life around me, whether it be other people or the animals. Like I have a hummingbird feeder that I'm super pumped about, but it's like small little things that like kind of, they ground me. They give that level of like peace that, I don't just wake up frantic in the morning going, I have so much to do. But like just to start with like the simplistic, peaceful, enjoyable morning rituals. And that stems into, making my cappuccino in the morning and having my coffee and reading, and then being in prayer, taking time to just be absolutely still and silent before anything happens. And something that I've tried to get better at now is like not having distractions, like his phone, like not looking at my phone for the first couple hours that I'm awake, to know that work's going to get done later, but like taking absolute ownership that it's going to get done later and that it doesn't have to rule my life now. Because I think that's what it comes down to, is like when I do this, I am working against something that can take ownership of my life. That me having this morning, I'm taking control of my day. I'm taking ownership of it, and I am doing the best thing for me, for others, for my business by doing this, and not let anything else pull me away from doing that. Because man, now it gets to the point of, if I didn't have these morning practices and I try to do something later in the day, I already know that, man, like I could accomplish this thing, but if I didn't do this morning, then I don't really feel like I'm accomplished anymore. Like, because I missed the thing that is best for me and that helps me show up the best that I can. So if I feel like I didn't get that, then how can I feel like I was the best later in the day, or, was showing up in the best version of myself? So.
Did you have to find, or what was your method for experimenting into finding that flow for yourself?
I think a lot of it was encouraged by some books that I have read. There's a book that is very much intertwined with my faith and creative mind. And it's literally about the need and encouragement to rest and to take time to rest. Because for me, from a spiritual, from a mental standpoint, like I think the greatest level of creativity and ideas and flowing of these ideas stems from a place of stillness and quietness, because I think the things that are going to show up for you, that inner voice is trying to tell you, comes from when you're the most quiet and stillness, because there's no other noise. There's no other things that are trying to fight for your attention or anything. Like the thing that you're listening to, it's very much clear. It's direct. There's no questioning. Like it gives you all you need essentially, and a better understanding of working through ideas. Like I think a lot of that is a biological thing that I can't stand here and act super knowledgeable about, but that I'm aware of, that, especially in the morning for me, like we are wired to be as most clear focused and with the most amount of energy in the morning, right? Later in the day is when you probably shouldn't do the harder tasks because you're not fully there, as far as your energy and your ability to distinguish between what's going on in your head and your mind, because now you've had an entire full day of information and you have to kind of cycle through all that and sift through it. In the morning, it's very clear. And so a lot of those books that I've read have helped navigate through that, and to understand, man, like I think, knowing that these things are saying, hey, rest, because busy is not always good, and you need to be cautious to not be prideful and busy. And so I think when I actually started doing that every single day and being consistent and showing up to that, when I started seeing the benefits of it, it proved to me like, oh yeah, this is something you should do, and why I would tell anybody, yeah, you should do this, because I've seen the effects and the result of doing it. And I think there's no better convincing someone than when they actually see the results of something, right? Like that's why I like, you convince somebody in the weightlifting world, like when you see the transformation and you show them the transformation, they're more convinced that it actually works, right? And I think I have to do that within myself. I know that if I want to see if something actually works, I got to show up for it consistently, to have a very disciplined and firm, uncompromisable strategy or plan or routine. And let's analyze it down the road at whatever point and see like, how much should this actually improve my life, and is it beneficial? If it's not, that's where the whole harvest aspect comes. You prune the thing that isn't actually serving you. But when I started saying like, oh wow, actually I feel better in my day. Like I feel more clear headed. I think when there's other affirmations that exterior that are like, whether people think or saying like, man, you seem lighter, or you seem like XYZ. It's like, I think that better affirms like, okay, I'm seeing the benefits of this, so I got to keep doing it, or like, or else people are gonna be like, what the heck happened to you if I cut them off? So, but yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
Absolutely.
We've covered, and it's been great. From your experience, it sounds like, you are a pinnacle of agency over your life, and you've done this by practicing a lot of intentionality, being introspective, scheduling time for yourself, balance, having grace, all of these mechanisms. Is there anything you feel like we didn't cover today in terms of the path that you've taken in life and things that you attribute to your success?
I think we covered a lot of it, man, in ways that, I mean, even this conversation, and I hope for others, is, man, like to be introspective, to step back, to think about, where can I improve in my life? Like, and to, again, understand that the things that you put your time into are only as healthy as you are. And so, I mean, that's the big thing that I love. And, I love, the agency sense of like, taking responsibility and taking control of it. And, I told you this when we had met for coffee, that, I think one of the biggest things I've learned is like, in the most very blunt way of like, no one's going to save you, right? Like you have the ability, and you are the one who's going to get yourself out of whatever trial, and hardship. But also, if you want something, if there's something that you desire and want for your life, like you have everything and all the tools to get to that place. And no one's going to do it for you. And you're the most capable and able person to get there. And I'm sure that is a testament to your story and to mine of, man, like when we just take ownership, to take accountability for it, man, like, and focus on becoming better people, I think that shows up in how we are better in giving our time and of service to others, and everything else will flourish from that, from a place of taking ownership and to wanting to strive for growth and not necessarily striving to, be perfect or be successful, because success is not the end goal, right? Our entire grow is the process of becoming. Like when you're in the gap, it's not about getting out of the gap and never having to go back, right? It's about the process of continually growing and becoming more of who we are meant to be, who we are called to be, to getting to the things that are the most impactful in our lives, in the world, to others, and to not shy away from that opportunity. It's uncomfortable, it's hard, and it looks different for everyone. But I think the biggest thing is, hey, these are all building blocks onto a strong foundation of your character. And man, all these experiences, all this life is meant to be shared with others, because man, if there's anything that is true, like community, being around other people has been the affirmation, the support, and the love that you're searching for, because you can't do it alone. And in that, when you get to a higher place, when you get further down the road, man, don't look back at those things, but look back at the people that you can help and serve, because they might be where you were just at. And, there's no tool greater than others to help you. But that first starts within you to take those steps. And so that's true with business. That's true with personal development. And I mean, hey, it's not about being perfect, because there's so much beauty in the imperfection and in the everyday moments to just be better, to be a better you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Tucker, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on the show, man, and being vulnerable with me and sharing what it's like to be you. Is there where can people find you? What do you want to promote?
So obviously the biggest thing that I will promote is Smylie Coffee Catering. So my last name, but it has been the vessel for how I best serve people. And the team members that I bring on, like, our whole thing is not just a cup of coffee that we serve at an event, but it is an experience in a way that we can serve and love and have fellowship with others. And so that's my entire current mission and vessel on how all the things that I've talked about works through, is my coffee catering company here in Austin. And so that's the one thing I want to push towards, and hopefully it creates more conversations with others, because coffee is a central place for community and for conversations. And that's true for you and I, and how we got to the place that we're at today. And so yeah.
Heck yeah, man. There's closing tradition on this podcast, where each guest leaves a book recommendation for the guest before. So while I get you your book, think of your title. But the book that was left for you is called The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle. Have you read it?
I have not. I'm very intrigued by this. Heck yeah.
It was left to you by a elite high rocks athlete, and it said it was instrumental in his growth. So
sweet, awesome.
He hopes
thank you.
It lands in the same way as it did for him for you.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. What's your title?
Yeah, so the book that I would love to recommend is Unreasonable Hospitality.
Okay.
It is a book that, man, especially for anybody in the food industry, restaurants, hospitality, it's an amazing book on what it means to serve people. And the reason I recommend it is because I don't know who's going to sit in this position for the next episode, but I know that you don't have to be a catering company or a restaurant to find so many life lessons and impact in it. Because again, one of the greatest fulfillments in people's lives is to be able to be of service to others. And man, the entire story is just a beautiful testament to that, of, you know, offering the best experience for others, and to just realize the importance of that community, and how it can affect our lives as well, to give back to others. And so that's the book that I want to recommend. So
amazing. I'll pick it up. Tucker, thank you again. I appreciate you, and look forward to hanging out in the future, man.
Absolutely.
All right, brother.
Heck yeah, bro. Dude, I need to come up with that.
Yeah, dude.
All I need was like, walk it up.